how you think, India is positioned as far as our economic situation is concerned. When you look at the rest of the world, inflation is at a 40-year high. For example, in a country like Germany, there's a huge cost of living crisis that is being seen in Europe, in the UK, etc. So how are we placed vis-a-vis the rest of the world?
Well, I think the whole world is kind of figuring it out. I mean, there was COVID and there's a Ukraine crisis, and that's created a commodities crisis in general. So I don't think that, I think this moment saying, we're doing well or badly, this is sort of, I think, premature. I really think we are so much in the moment of a crisis. I mean, the US, the inflation rates are also unprecedented here, and I think that it's not necessarily yet even processed. I think clearly, there's monetary policy, there's responses that are being taken, will be taken. Inflation will moderate, but I think a lot of it is also just, at least in the US and in Europe, it's very much a backlog of a very long period of slow wage growth, which with ballooning inequality. And now a lot of people just say, I'm not going to work unless you pay me more. So I really think there is a clear cost push dimension. In India, that's not the shape of things. In India, it's really coming from commodity prices and I mean, we've been lucky, actually. We've been running a very large budget deficit for a while. I mean, for a long time. And especially in the last few years. And I think that commodity prices being relatively low was allowing us to somehow survive that. And now that's with the Ukraine war, that's sort of been upended. So I do think that we're all in the middle of a transition. I think all the predictions about, India is going to do this or that or the other, we'll see. There's another COVID wave that could come. So I feel very uncomfortable going into predictions about this is what's going to happen in India and that's going to happen in the rest of the world. I think that's all.
When you look at the inflation figures, the WPI inflation today, the wholesale price index inflation, which is driven by food items, by fuel, by other commodities as well, those numbers today are at over 15%. And the data is a bit conflicting on this. Some estimates say it's the highest in 30 years. Others are saying that it's the highest since 2005. But it's high. Now, this is double-digit inflation now for 13 consecutive months. That is preceding the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but certainly in the midst of the pandemic. What do we attribute that to for us here in India?
Well, I think that we had a major kind of, our supply chains and the supply chains everywhere in the world have already been disrupted heavily. I mean, I think one of the stories that is impacting us is also China. I think China is right now in the middle of its multiple postponed crises due to COVID. And in some ways, and that's created a huge number of supply chain issues. And those supply chain issues are going to be, we buy lots of things from China. It's one of our biggest trading partners. And so it's not going to be, as the Chinese economy finds it harder to push out lots and lots of commodities, those commodities become scarce. So there's nothing particularly, again, I go back to saying that we are still living through COVID plus Ukraine. And I don't think that we really know what's happening. I think the thing that's striking more, I would say, is what's happening in the West, which is, I think, a real realignment of political forces. I think the young are unprepared to work, and we see labor force participation rates which are very low, and I think that's actually and unemployment rates therefore very low as well, because anybody who wants a job can get a job. So I do think that that's what's striking in this moment, is that that's something else that we didn't expect, but that's maybe the one thing that plus China's I think many missteps in handling COVID. I think all of that's going to is playing through this story as well. And that's been playing since 2020.